Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. Today we're starting a new series on the combat system in Guild Wars 2. The first couple of videos will focus on the very basics, but we'll be moving on to more complicated things as we progress through the series. That said, starting with the very basics, W, A, S, and D are your movement keys, W moving you forward, S moving you backward, and by default, A and D moving both the camera and your character left and right at the same time. I would recommend rebinding A and D to your left and right strafe, or at the very least unbinding them altogether. You can already move your character and camera by holding down right click and moving the mouse in the direction you want to go. Not only does using the mouse feel more responsive, but by unbinding those keys, you'll have more keys close to W, A, S, and D to bind to other things. In addition to basic movement, Guild Wars 2 also has a dodge ability, and while dodging, your character is essentially invulnerable for a few seconds, so it's a good idea to make sure it's bound to something you can easily hit. By default, you can double tap in the direction you'd like to dodge, or press V while moving your character in the direction you'd like to move. Your dodges are limited, and accidentally double tapping could be costly, so I would recommend either using V or rebinding that key to something you can easily access. So with basic movement out of the way, let's take a look down at the skill bar and talk about skills. The bottom left hand side, you'll see 5 slots, and these are your 5 weapon skills. They're called weapon skills because the skills that appear here are based on the weapons you currently have equipped. All weapons in Guild Wars 2 are either one-handed like scepters, swords, maces, and daggers, or two-handed like greatswords, bows, hammers, and staves. Additionally, each profession has a different pool of weapons they can use. Press H to open up the hero panel, and click the second tab down on the left side. Here you can see a full list of weapons that your profession has access to. Keeping those weapons in mind, you can now click the first left tab of the hero panel, and you'll be able to view your equipment. On the left-hand side, you'll be able to see all items in your inventory that you can equip, and on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see all the gear you currently have equipped. Towards the bottom of your equipped gear, you'll be able to see 4 slots for weapons split into 2 groups. For now, let's take a look at the first group, or the top group, of 2 slots, since everything I'm about to say applies to both. To equip a one-handed weapon, place it in the top slot of that first group. One-handed weapons equipped in this slot are called main hand weapons, and they fill up the first 3 slots of your weapon skill bar. To fill the last 2 slots, you'll need to equip a second one-handed weapon in the second slot. One-handed weapons equipped in this slot are called offhand weapons. Depending on your profession, you might be able to use the same weapon for both slots. By placing, say, a sword in the first or second slot, you can see that the skills change based on whether or not the weapon is in your main or offhand. Equipping a two-handed weapon will fill up all 5 weapon skill slots, and this will also disable your second weapon slot because technically both of your hands are in use for a two-handed weapon. With that out of the way, we can now talk about the other 2 slots, or the lower slots, and here you can actually equip another set of weapons. Just to the left of the weapon skills, you can see an arched arrow. This button, called Weapon Swap, allows you to alternate between 2 sets of weapons. So those second 2 slots, or the bottom 2 slots, are your second set of weapons, and you'll be able to equip one- and two-handed weapons the same way we've already talked about. Across both sets, you'll be able to equip one- and two-handed weapons in any variation you like, so you can equip 2 two-handed weapons or 2 sets of one-handed weapons. But all of that said, if you play either an engineer or an elementalist, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about because those professions don't have access to the weapon swap feature. Back to the skill bar itself, the large red circle in the center of your skills is your health orb. The number in the center of that circle represents your health points, and the amount of red in that circle will deplete as you take damage. Just above your health, you can see a gold arch split into 2 sections, and each section represents 1 dodge. After dodging, the bar will slowly fill back up, but since dodging negates all damage, you don't want to waste them. To the right of the health orb, you'll find 5 more skills, the first of which is always your heal skill. The next 3 skills are called utility skills, and the last skill is your elite skill. All 5 of these skills are selectable from a pool of unlocked skills by the player. Clicking the small arrow above each skill will show all other skills equipable for that slot. Both by leveling and completing hero challenges in the open world, your character will earn hero points. Hero points are used to unlock the skills that you'll be equipping in these slots, and to spend them, just click the third tab down on your hero panel. In the top left corner, you can see all unlockable skills, each in their own category. Different skills will require different amounts of hero points, the most expensive being the elite skills. Utility skills tend to provide your character with some sort of utility, whether it's more damage, crowd control, a passive bonus, and sometimes play off of your character's other abilities. Elite skills are essentially just overpowered utility skills that tend to have a longer refresh rate, so you won't be using them as often, but they will be more impactful when you use them. Since utility and elite skills are mostly based off of the profession you're playing, we won't go into too much more depth than that, just know that we will talk about these again in the future. Just above your weapon skills, you'll find your profession skills, and as the name suggests, these skills are unique to the profession you're playing. The function of these skills, as well as the number of profession skills that appear here, are all based off of your profession, so we can't really cover them without going through each one of the professions, and we won't be doing that here today. Just know that it's a really good idea to familiarize yourself with those abilities and what they do. By hovering your mouse over any skill, it'll bring up that skill's tooltip, and this will show useful information like the damage, range, number of targets, and any additional effects caused by activating that ability. In the top right corner of the tooltip, you'll see some symbols with numbers next to them, the first of which is the cast time, or how long it'll take after activating the skill before the effect goes off, and the second is the cooldown, or how long you'll have to wait before you can use that skill again. Like with profession skills, and really all skills you're using, you should read the tooltips to better understand your profession and the skills you have at your disposal. Now that's basically it for the very basics of combat, or at least what I'd like to cover here today. But before I wrap up this first video, there are a few more keybinds worth mentioning, as well as some additional settings you may want to change. The keybinds you use here are entirely up to you, but I would make sure at the very least, weapon swap if you have access to it, your healing skill, and again, make sure your dodge are all bound to keys you can easily reach at a moment's notice. The default keybinds for Guild Wars 2 and really all MMOs are pretty terrible, so I'd recommend taking some time to rebind those keys and figuring out what works best for your playstyle. That said,
do not click your skills.
Guild Wars 2 is a fast-paced game, and clicking to activate your abilities or your dodge, you'll be at a disadvantage. I'll leave a link to a video I did on keybinds if you need some guidance, but you should really take some time to bind keys and make sure you have buttons to press instead. Lastly, for each one of these videos, I do want to cover any options or settings you can change to make the combat a little bit better, and I'd like those to be in relation to something I talked about earlier in the video. To access your settings, just press Escape and click Options. On that first tab, you can see an area called Content Guide, and if you look down towards the middle of all those checkboxes, you'll see two options you may want to enable. You can check Show Skill Recharge, and that'll actually show a small numerical countdown on your skill bar to let you know when a skill's going to come back. And additionally, there's the Show Target Health %, which we didn't really talk about, but every enemy in Guild Wars 2 by default just shows a red health bar, and while you can guess at how much damage you're doing or how much health that enemy has left, this will actually give you a number to tie to that. Scroll down a little bit and you'll see the camera section, and here you'll want to play around with rotation speed as well as your field of view sliders. Your rotation speed will just be how fast you can turn your character from side to side while holding in the right mouse, and the field of view slider just adjusts how far you'll be able to zoom the camera out or in when you use your scroll wheel. Just below the sliders at the very bottom, you'll see Enable First Person Camera and Adjust Camera to Character Height. Enabling the first person camera isn't that incredible, it'll just help you take some good screenshots, and I thought I'd throw it in here. But also, Adjust Camera to Character Height is great if you're playing a Norn or a Sura, basically any characters that are larger or smaller than a human, and this will position your camera in a way that makes a little bit more sense for that character's height. Scroll down just a bit more and you'll see Combat and Movement, and while I intend to cover more of this in some future videos, the only thing I'd really focus here today is the double tap to evade. If you're not using double tap, you can actually just disable it here so you don't have to worry about accidentally pressing W twice and wasting one of your dodges. In the spirit of making sure that these videos remain pretty short but informative, I'm gonna wrap this one up right here. but stay tuned as I will be making more videos in this series at least once a week. To anyone out there using this as your first guide to Guild Wars 2 combat, I hope you found this helpful and informative. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.